Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tami Patzer.
Hi, this is Tami Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest, the author of I Am Her Daughter, The Healing Path to a Woman's Power. Licia Berry has actively healed her mother wound as well as assisted women who seek to change the world to heal theirs. Her background in education, neurosciences, indigenous medicine, and psychology make her an unusual and refreshing healer of the world's mother wound. You can learn more at IamHerDaughter.com, but first, let's listen and welcome Licia Berry. Welcome.
Hello, Tami. Thanks so much for having me.
I really am excited to talk to you because I have been reading I Am Her Daughter, The Healing Path to a Woman's Power, and all I can say is that every page speaks, and you can tell that you have been given some really vital, valuable information that is so important to the women of today. So I really want you to tell me more about your big mission and message and how and why you got on this path. And I know you're going to have to give me the short version because I know it's been a lifelong journey, but it's so important. So tell me a little bit more about the background.
Well, I, like many women who are called to be of greater service in their lives, had to overcome some personal obstacles to be able to show up, with my voice and with my mind and my heart and my soul and my passion to really express in the world. I had to overcome some issues internally to be able to do that. And I found that the issues that I encountered personally were common to a lot of women who feel called to show up in the world and change the world. So I realized that by sharing my journey, I was perhaps going to be able to support other women in overcoming their own life obstacles, difficult experiences as a child, perhaps with their parents, or perhaps, having some kind of trauma in their life, or other difficulty that a lot of women face in our culture that prefers that women tend to be quieter and kinder and sweeter and not so much an agent of change, if you know what I mean. So
I do.
Yeah. I think a lot of women do. And as a person who, started as a very, sensitive soul, artistic temperament, very sensitive, very introverted, it was a real challenge for me not to have a lot of support, growing up, and then to come up in the world, in the South, in the Southern U.S. in particular, with a lot of, strong feelings and strong ideas and passion for equality and fairness for women and for all people, and to sort of feel like that was pushed back on by the culture that I lived in. And so really having to get clear inside of myself was paramount to be able to show up. And I really think that now more than ever in our lifetime, perhaps, women are gifted with a vision about how the world could be, that would be healing and kind and good to everyone, but that means that we have to really claim our place at the table and show up and use our voice and use our hearts and our passion and our vision to show the way to a different world, a new world. And so I'm here to help.
Well, I think you are 100% accurate about that. And the book, I Am Her Daughter, you actually published that about, what, a year ago on Mother's Day? And what led you to write it the way you did? Because you actually wrote the personal part of your story, and then it goes through to more of the Earth Mother, or the mother's voice coming through you. Can you talk a little bit about that journey? Because I know we have a lot of people who are interested in the writer's journey, but I also definitely want you to talk more about how can a woman uh, claim the power that she needs to claim in order to become a leader. And we definitely need leaders, women leaders in the world today.
No question. To answer the first part of your question, I felt that it was important to write from the personal point of view, just so that the reader could know that I live what I preach. That I don't teach anything I haven't personally benefited from, especially in facilitation and mentorship work. I have done a lot of work to heal myself. I've very difficult relationship with my mother, and in fact, healed and recovered from PTSD and abuse, and other challenges that emanated from her, as well as my family of origin. And I felt that I needed to share that to just have credibility, to the reader. That I've lived through these things, and pulled myself up from, being definitely a victim, of these things, which you are when you're powerless as a child. But as a young woman, recognizing that I didn't want to live my life in that frame of mind, that I wanted to heal myself so that I could have a joyous life. And initially that was very much a selfish desire, just to feel happy, to feel like I could have permission to live in the world and feel joy. But as I grew, and as I went through my process of healing my own personal mother wound, I noticed, as I was showing up, for other women, that so many women have mother wounds too. Difficult relationships with their mothers, yes, sometimes, but also difficult relationship with other women, where women don't trust other women, or women feel very hurt by other women, or let down or betrayed by other women. That whole kind of competition thing, or women undermining other women. And so I started to formulate this idea that that there was not just a personal mother wound, but perhaps a cultural mother wound. And that path led me down into some very interesting research and territory into how our culture evolved when we started speaking language in words, and developing our reason and our rational brain, our left brain, and moving away from our arts and healing practices, and trusting our dreams and intuitions and imagination, and the evolution of the culture valuing left brain more than the right brain, which is essentially, the right brain is all about connection, empathy, emotion, intuition, imagination. And the left brain is what you learned in school. You're reading, writing, and arithmetic. And, we are rewarded for those left brain achievements and the left brain input, but we're often taught to dismiss the right brain and dismiss those softer, more feminine, more womanly traits. And what we have discovered in neuroscience is that a woman's brain is actually more connected between her left brain and right brain, that there's a thicker bridge, the corpus callosum, between her hemispheres. And so she's able to access much more of the big picture, which is the right brain's domain, and also bring it into the left brain domain of logic and reason. And so to marry those two perspectives is something unique to women, that we are physically different in such a way that we can actually bring a larger understanding of a better world in by having access to that right brain, input, and then speak about it and show people how to get there with that left brain reason and ration. So we're really equipped, but have been systematically over a very long time trained to not listen to the right brain's input. And so because we dismiss that, we are kind of caught in this awful cycle right now, and we're seeing the greatest consequence of that, in our political situation, in our global situation, the difficulties with the environment and with war, and it's just so many situations where if we had listened to perhaps a feminine point of view, we would not be in the situation that we're in right now. So we really need women to show up. And the book travels through that journey of the personal mother wound through into the cultural and then the global mother wound. And what do you know, by the end of my story, I'm actually feeling as if I'm tapping into an archetypal mother presence, perhaps even a feminine face of the divine that is guiding us, if we will listen, if we're interested, to listen to that, to try to help us through these issues that we're facing right now.
That's that feminine divine. That is so beautiful. Just the way that you describe that. So the way that you describe it is that women actually innately are more connected, their right and their left brains, just naturally because of how we're built and created. Yet the very things that you are describing often are what many people consider the woo-woo part. And I know woo-woo is not a scientific term, but that is the intuition, the sensitivity, the artistic part, the part of us that we admire it in ancient. If you look at art and history, you can tell that it's been valued at some point in time. But today, it just seems that women in our culture, in in the United States, where I'm from, I know a lot of times women are, when they do start to speak up, they are automatically almost told to shh, be quiet, don't we don't want to hear from you. So talk a little bit more about how can women reclaim that power, because you have lived it and you have started that journey of helping not only yourself but other people to reclaim that power. What are some things that people can do to start that reclaiming process?
Well, I think that any change begins with discontent. Unfortunately, that's how it starts. We sort of walk around in our life and we notice that we're not pleased with something, the way things are in our life or in our lives outside of ourselves. We're like, I don't really like that very much. For example, one thing that I, didn't like about my life was that I felt so uncomfortable around women for many years, and just didn't understand why. And that wasn't okay with me because, that's more than half the population. I just needed to figure out, why am I uncomfortable with women? And so that was a place to begin. I think everybody can look at where they feel that their life isn't quite living up to their hopes and expectations, and that discontent is where we start. Like asking that question, why is it that I can't seem to quite feel comfortable on walking around in nature? Or why is it that I just don't feel like I can manifest abundantly? Or why is it that I can't quite, when I get around a bunch of guys, I just feel like I clam up? Or why, those kinds of questions are invitations into inquiry. And that's really the most powerful way to get to the heart of what an issue may be. For a woman to claim her voice she's got to want to feel like she wants to be heard, you know? And if she hasn't been, there's pain. You know, there's pain in the wound of not being listened to. If we feel we have something to say and we're consistently shushed or maybe ridiculed, you know, for our point of view, then there's a wound there, and that's something to decide. You know, okay, I want to figure this out. I want to address this. I want to understand more, and I do talk about the symptoms of the mother wound in I'm Her Daughter.
So can you give a couple more symptoms of the mother wound?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, one of the primary ones that I see most often in women is, as I've mentioned, a mistrust or an unease with other women, where we feel we can't trust women, that we can't be ourselves, or we have to be on guard, or we might, you know, feel that we act in a loving and kind and supportive way, but behind another woman's back, then we'll talk about her in a nasty way or gossipy way. I find that to be probably the number one that's most consistent. Interestingly, another symptom of the mother wound is feeling like you can't measure up to your own standards, like you're having difficulty loving your body, or difficulty deciding that you're worthy of love in general, a negative self-image, an apathy toward one's self-care. These are some things that also show up as a mother wound. In fact, I have a free excerpt of my book that I'm going to give to you, Tami, for your listeners. It's a link that I'll send to you that's a list of symptoms of a mother wound, as well as an excerpt from the book.
Thank
you.
So
I will definitely send you that.
I think that's really helpful, because as you're talking, I was going, well, I mean, most of us, if you've, you know, and it starts when you're a child, little things that people say. I was actually at it was a clothing store the other day, and I heard a little voice. It was a child, and what they were saying was, "Oh, we can't afford that." And it was a little kid, and I don't even know what they were looking at. I think they must have been in the toy aisle, and I just overheard this, but I could tell it was probably an 8-year-old. And then when you were talking about things that other women say or do, I've had the situation where, remembering, it started in elementary school or high school, where maybe other girls would giggle and point at you, or they would say something about the clothes you wore, or make some kind of comment. And then as you got older and you went into the workplace, maybe you may have had a female boss who maybe was a little bit afraid of you, which happened to me. And so she got, instead of going, "Oh, you're somebody I can help," it was more like, "I got to get rid of you," you know? And so you do have these real wounds that happen. And so I think that that's a really wonderful gift. And again, the effort that you've put into I Am Her Daughter, and the timing, I think, is just especially important, that women know that you have this information out there and ready for them. You've also talked about soul tending. Can you describe exactly what that is and what that means?
Sure, as best I can. It's a little mysterious, so bear with me. It's definitely a right brain concept. The idea of soul tending is very much a feminine way of being, and so to talk about this, I'm going to have to ask you to kind of break out of your idea of the world as it is, where everything is goal oriented and 2 + 2 = 4. You know, soul tending is larger, it's more mysterious, it's softer. It's actually how women who are in their power as a woman and who are connected deeply to their feminine self and who have healed their mother wound to some degree can really show up for other women. We know how to soul tend each other as well as soul tend ourselves. And this is a function of that feminine divine, that archetype that I found and discovered, just to my great surprise, that taught me how to essentially mother myself and then be able to mother other women. Did not come naturally to me. I learned how to be basically a man in a woman's body. In this culture, so many women, we have to be tough and we have to be goal oriented and we have to, really essentially just man up. And that feminine way of connection to each other and to ourself, to our own soul, is lost. But I've reclaimed it, and many women that I have supported have reclaimed it, and it's a different whole way of being. It doesn't replace, doing the stuff that needs to get done in our life and, accomplishing and being successful in our business or in our family, accomplishing our creative goals or projects, but it actually supports those things. It creates a foundation of caring and self-acceptance and self-support, that all of those other things can be successful by being built on top of that. So it's a way of being. Soul tending is a way of being that women really could and can innately master if they're willing to connect with this archetypal feminine divine presence, this what I call in the book Great Mother. And when we do that, when we really show up in who we are, that's when we connect to our deep power, which is connected with our body, which is connected with the earth, which is connected with being a woman, which is connected with using our whole brain. All of these things that we are typically trained not to do, not necessarily consciously, like, some evil presence trying to train us not to do that, but just that's how the culture has evolved. And that when we step into that power, then we are actually becoming role models for other women to also do the same. And that is the core of leading by being, which is different than leading by doing. Leading by doing is like, okay, I'm going to go do this and everybody, you come follow me and I'm going to show you the way and I'm going to be the authority and the expert. Leading by being, which is the name of a course that I teach, and I think I'll write a book about that sometime, is about women really just showing up in their authentic self as women, whole brain, connected in their body, their mind, their soul, their emotion, their spirit, and being a beacon and role model for other women to do the same, because I really believe, Tami, that that's the only way this world is going to make it, is if women step it up.
That leaves me almost speechless. but everything you're saying, it does. It makes 100% perfect sense, because even great leaders have said that women are going to be the people who, change the world. And I can understand that. And the way that you describe that, leading by being, as you're saying that, and I'm thinking about myself, because I'm just, using myself as an example, and how you said it, we have, in order to be successful, we often think, well, we have to act like a man because we're in that competitive world of being in competition. But when you step back and you're in your being self, you're in more of a cooperative situation, and you're not putting all this pressure out there to, like you said, do all these different things. And I think you're absolutely right. It is a little bit of a different concept. And, it isn't something that I think that I know I personally can't grasp it in a short conversation, but it's definitely what I think is that I am her daughter, the healing path to a woman's power. What your book is, it's like a start. It's like an opportunity to start to understand, how we are affected in by our own mother wounds and in our own culture, because we do live in a very male dominated culture, and so we're always trying to figure out, how do we rise up and be leaders in a male dominated culture where women often, it wasn't that long ago that women in the United States couldn't vote, and they were still considered property of their fathers or husbands. So,
True.
it's time, it seems like a long time, but I think in the scheme of the world, it's a very short period of time. So you are going to be out and about, speaking about I Am Her Daughter. You're going to be doing some live events. Can you tell me a little bit more about the upcoming plans for 2017 and beyond?
Yes, I am. I'm going to be on my media tour in the United States in 2017. So, Southwest, Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, and book signings and speakings and workshops. I typically run a few retreats a year, and so that's all in the works. And beyond that, I plan to take it out, beyond the U.S. and the timing, of course, is extraordinary
Right.
for this material. But I did want to come back to something,
Okay.
that you mentioned that I think is really important to emphasize. Sometimes women hear, this leadership conversation as if that women need to like replace men or something like that, and that is absolutely not my advocacy. I know that there are some women out there that think that men have trashed things, and that that we need to just do away with men. And I, as a woman who's been married for 30 years to a very beautiful, kind, and loving man, and also has two beautiful, kind, and loving sons, adult sons, I love men, and especially men who have integrated their feminine side, integrated their heart and brought their right brain in, into their leadership style, which all of the men in my life have. My advocacy is that women, because we have access to something bigger than we've seen on this planet, that we are actually going to be midwifing and birthing a whole different way of being in this world. And it is hard to talk about because we haven't seen it on our planet, in our, the last several generations. We haven't seen it. It's a different way of being with each other. It's more kind, it's more connected. It thinks about the larger whole and the consequences of our decisions on the seventh generation and beyond us. And it really harkens back to a more indigenous way of considering, our place in the whole and the decisions that we make and the consequences of those decisions. So again, women have this access to that vision, that larger meaning, that larger picture, innately, when we allow ourselves to really listen, to our innate intelligence that we have inside of us. And if we're willing to go there, then we can, without even realizing we're doing it, we can be leading the way into a better world for everybody, not just for women, but for everyone.
Well, I think that's a really good point, because you're absolutely right. It's not just about women versus men. It is
Right.
about women and men and all people, and it's not
Right.
about the gender at all. It's really, like you said, it's about being and
Right.
humans being, in a positive way. Where can people find out more about you and your events, your workshops, your retreats?
The easiest place is to look up my name. LiciaBerry.com is my website. So that's LiciaBerry.com, LiciaBerry.com. And that's the place to get, all the access to everything that I've got. I have a lot of free resources available in blog articles, my radio show and video lessons, as well as my books and e-courses. And then if people are interested in working with me, I have several different packages available to support people in session work and mentorship, as well as invite them to my retreats, my live events. And I seem to attract women primarily. I do have a few men clients, but primarily women who are the introvert, sensitive sort of types, of women who feel almost like there's a bird inside their chest, pressing to get out, like the voice wants to get out, but they have things they've learned about, being a person with a voice in this culture that are not really letting them, speak up. They have those obstacles, whether it's because of something that they learned as a child, in their relationships with their mothers, or whether it's cultural quieting, shushing, doesn't really matter. But that seems to be the kind of women that I attract are real cultural creatives, people who are really here to have big messages and big missions, and they just want to overcome whatever it is that's in their way. And it's my great delight, oh my gosh, to watch freedom happen with women who really do have important work in the world to do.
Well, it's funny that you just described the very people who are part of Women Innovators, big message, big missions.
Oh my gosh.
Because often, and I recognize myself when you talk about that, because you say people who are introvert, sensitive, artistic, and they know that they have something to say, but they just need a little bit of help to release it, to let their voices be heard. So it's really interesting to me because we are on the same path, because I see myself as the messenger's messenger. And you just actually said, you described the very women who are part of my Women Innovators Big Message, Big Mission book series. So that's really, really cool. So is there anything else that maybe I forgot to ask you, or that you'd like to remind people about before I let you go?
Oh, first of all, just thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm excited that we're on the same team, Tami. And I would just say that for people who sense that there may be some connection here, something that we've talked about today, maybe touched your heart, or or caused you to sit up a little straighter in your chair, or to start a question mark above your head, just look at the book. That's a great place to start. I Am Her Daughter is the book, and it's on all the online retailers. And, if you're in a major city in the U.S. this year, look me up. I'd love to meet you, love to see you. Come on out. Let's have a conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Tami. It's just been such a pleasure.
This is Tami Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tami Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.